Once you've finished your Photoshop work on an image, you may need to deliver this to someone to post on a website, and there are several different file formats that you'll choose from. In order to get the best image for your intended delivery, I'm going to choose File, Save for Web. I've seen too many people email just raw camera images and fill up inboxes because they don't know that this will let you size it down to be placed into a web page or to be small enough to email. I'm going to maximize my screen, and I can see in this preview the image is huge. Most web pages today are designed with a maximum width of 960 pixels. That way you don't count scroll bars or bookmarks or buttons. So if I look at the image size for this photo, it's at 2100 pixels, much too large. In fact, if I'm doing an email of this image, I usually shoot for around 800 pixels wide by 600 tall. That way I know it fits into the email window where they're reading the message. So let's imagine they want this to take up about half of the web page it's being placed into. So we'll do 460. And when I type 460, I'm going to be very careful to hit Tab to trigger the preview. Now in the Save for Web dialog, I've got Original, which is the Photoshop file I started with, and then an optimized preview. And you'll see when I switch between them, this dithering, that little pattern that looks like it's being introduced when I save for the web. Now I may want to test multiple settings. What it's previewing is what you have set here on the far right, and you can work from presets or you can customize. But let's dig in. So I could test two images side by side, the original and the optimized. But we'll try 4 up, and I'll move this so that the important portion of the image, the orchids, is in view. And let's take a look at your different file formats. Now when I click on the right side, the first thing I want to do is test how long it will take this web page to load. The average American internet connection is about 4.5 megabits per second. Not bytes, there are 8 bits in a byte. So this is dial-up speed. Let's go to something a little bit more typical for the average American. So I'm going to choose 512K. Could be DSL, could be slower cable, and it's only 2 seconds to load. Now GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format, but it's a format that's really dying off. In years past, we would use GIF when we had a logo, and to make GIFs smaller, you could limit the number of colors in an image. So only 8 colors, and the file size dropped to 22K. When I go back to 256 colors, it's 77K. And if I don't have a silhouette, I don't need to check transparency, which will add a slight amount to the file size. GIF is one of the 2 web formats that supports transparency. So if I had erased away the background to just see the orchids, I would need to use GIF or Ping, the portable network graphic. Now looking at this color table, GIF really only can support up to 216 web-safe colors, but a total of 256 colors. So if I made this 100% web-safe so that it looks exactly the same on all browsers and all platforms, or doesn't dither or put a pattern in colors that it can't match, every color with a little diamond is one of those blessed 216 web-safe colors. And our file size got a lot smaller, but this really is not what I'm going for. So a lot of designers will compromise if they need animation and transparency. Those are the 2 things that GIF can do that JPEG can't. So the colors with diamonds are web safe. All the colors that don't have diamonds may get dithering or patterning in them. So I don't see GIF used that often today, but 5 or 10 years ago it was a standard. If you have a photo, so here's the original, here's a GIF I'm testing. If you have a photo, which this is, JPEG is often a better format to choose. If I change my type to JPEG, now I get 16 million colors. It's 2 to the 24th power, which is really 16,777,216 colors, but I won't recite the number. What that tells me is the JPEG at high quality is giving me an 18K file. so smaller than the GIF in this case. The quality is 60. If I click on this lower right image and change it to JPEG and make the quality low, here you could see noise or data loss where it's actually permanently trashing data. If I go to medium, there's less noise, but I'm still seeing some patterning. And if I went to maximum, there should be no detectable noise, but every time you save this JPEG, it's progressively trashing data, so you'll start to see images that were JPEG and saved too many times have patterns that you could never get rid of. So between maximum and high, I don't see a big difference. I might as well go with high because it's 18K versus 68K. And between medium and high, I am seeing quality loss. Now the last file type that you might use for the web actually has two flavors. Ping 8, 8-bit color, or 2 to the 8th power, meaning 256, which uses the same color palette as GIF, but many browsers have a better engine for displaying Ping 8. 8 keeps the file size smaller, and Ping, or the portable network graphic, is one of those formats that can do transparency and animation. I don't need transparency, so I could turn it off. And then I could do an image format that would support transparency and animation, but still give you those 16 million or more colors, the Ping 24. But that is the biggest of all file sizes. It is more and more common today that people are using Ping 24 because they do tend to look a little bit richer in many of the browsers. And if file size was most important, on the web, your goal is to get the smallest file with the best quality. I would leave it on JPEG, but I can see the comparison from the original to GIF, JPEG, or Ping. Whichever one you leave active is the one that it saves. In fact, if I hit Save, it will build an HTML document, put the image in, and write in the width and height and source HTML code that you need. So sometimes I see coders do this to copy and paste the IMG SRC or image source tag in HTML. So I'll go to the desktop and I'll put this into the lesson 10, and this way you could see an HTML created, and I'll call this Orchid End and save. So let's take a look at our finished HTML document. I'll minimize Photoshop, open my project files, and I'll just double-click on the HTML, and it will launch my default web browser, and there is my sized, placed into the HTML code, Orchids image. And if I choose the source, here is the IMG SRC line that I mentioned with the width and height written in. If you just need to create a web image, you don't need to actually make that HTML. It's just a fun thing to see. So if I were to do File, Save for Web again, and set it to my 460, and hit Tab to see it, it's on my JPEG of high. And before I do this, I'll show you one last format that I didn't mention, which is the wireless bitmap. It's a format optimized for really older cell phones that had no color display. So it takes a solid color and goes to black or white, a bit on or off. So it creates this very interesting pattern. But if I want the JPEG high and I only need the image, I can click Save and choose just images only, which is the default. And I'll create this as my end file. And as we look at this folder, when it wrote the HTML, it put the image it's linking to for the first example in the images folder. But if I just need the JPEG, I hit Save, and now I've got my PSD intact, and I've saved a copy using File, Save for Web, and tested and selected the appropriate web format. So that's the best way to get a web-ready file sized down with the right colors in the right format.